This week we've heard that 120 MPs, including 3 from here, have signed a House of Commons motion which criticises the Attorney-General John Larkin. Mr Larkin's trying to prosecute the former Secretary of State Peter Hain over remarks in his memoirs about a judge. The Tory backbencher David Davis put forward the motion. I asked him earlier why.
Well, because of several levels of concern. I mean, the biggest one is that Mr Hain is being taken for contempt of court under a very, very old law, the scandalisation of judges, or judiciary law, which was considered obsolete 100 years ago, let alone now. And if he were to lose his case, then any Member of Parliament, indeed any Member of the Assembly, would be very nervous about going out onto the street and criticising a judgment or a member of the judiciary. Now, in our country, we live in a free country. The ability to criticise me, the ability to criticise you, and to criticise judges and governments is fundamental. And I think it will be really undermining to our democracy. So that's sort of reason number one. Reason number two is, if I offend you, I insult you in some way, you can sue me, and vice versa. But we don't normally get the government to do it for us. And that seems to me to be unfair. I mean, what they call in law, it's an inequality of arms. Basically, one side is getting help against the other. So those two things. And the third thing is, this could, at the end of the day, cost the Northern Ireland executive, £300,000, perhaps a bit more, if it goes to appeal, as it would do in the extreme. That's a lot of money that you can spend on much better things than protecting one person's sense of outrage at another.
No, it's not. I don't think people would, or not everybody would see it anyway, as just protecting somebody's sense of outrage. There's an issue of independence of the judiciary here. The Attorney-General is an independent figure, and if he believes there is a case to be argued in court and an issue to be tested in court, isn't he entitled to proceed with that?
Well, it's within his rights to do so, but whether he is right to do so is what's the question. I mean, it's quite notable if you look at the people who signed up the early day motion in the Commons. These are not just sort of passers-by. You've got a couple of Home Secretaries there, past Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. You've got other past Cabinet Ministers, lots of Privy Councillors. These are people who understand very well the importance of protecting the judiciary. Now, let me just give you an example the other way around. 2 Home Secretaries were very vigorous in their criticism of members of the judiciary and the decisions they took. In my view, some of the criticisms were wrong, but I would never argue they didn't have the right to do it. And that's very, very important, just as the independence and the respect with which governments and members of Parliament held is important. It doesn't mean you can't criticise them. Doesn't mean you can't say you're wrong.
Are you suggesting that somehow or other the judiciary behaves in a different way in Northern Ireland from England or indeed Scotland?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the last time I was on your programme, I was actually appearing in front of one of them to give some evidence. What I'm saying to you is that, of course, the independence of judiciary is very important, but so is the right to criticise. Those two things are in balance. Now, 2 centuries ago, when this piece of law sort of came into being, then it was expected that you sort of basically kowtowed to judges. I'm afraid this is the 21st century. Judges across the whole country are criticised from time to time, sometimes in the fiercest terms. Sometimes wrongly, by the way.
In the end, this doesn't matter, does it? What does it count for, no matter how many MPs sign up to this motion?
The motion is an expression of opinion. I mean, it could. In theory, early motions can make the law, but it won't. I mean, it's a long, long way away. And you've got to make your own judgment as to whether those opinions matter. But as I say to you, the sort of people who have said what they've said are not people without experience. They're not people without experience of the law, not people without experience of Northern Ireland. In many cases.
But in this instance, they're giving their views. Now, the argument from the other side is it doesn't matter what their views are. It's the Attorney-General's independence which matters, and he has decided that, as acting as an independent figure, he will take this case, and he's entitled to do that, and he should do that without being criticised for it.
He has got the... Well, no. Who in this country has got the right to do anything without being criticised? Name me somebody. The answer is nobody. That's what democracies are about. And the right to criticise is actually what we're talking about.
Maybe not criticism, but interfered. For parliamentarians to try to interfere with what he's doing.
Parliamentarians are there to express a view, generally speaking, on behalf of the public. And that is something that the judiciary reflects. Now, you're quite right. The Attorney General of Northern Ireland has got the absolute right to do what he does. But he's exercising a judgment, just as the Attorney General for the United Kingdom exercises judgments. And we also criticise him from time to time. This one is one which has aroused an extraordinary response, because people think that if this is carried through and the Attorney General or the case succeeds against Mr. Hain, then every MP and indeed every minister will think not once but 20 times before expressing a view on the judiciary, the operation of the judiciary, outside the House of Commons. And that will be a serious impediment to our democracy.
David Davis, still to come, the plight of a